What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I am Alex, and I am joined by a very dear friend yet again. We had to get Wicked back here because it's time. It's time to get ready for Doom the Dark Ages. We did Doom 2016 just a year ago on this channel. It was very well received, so I had to get the guy back, and we're here to talk about Doom Eternal. Now, at the time, I thought Doom Eternal was actually better than 2016. My thoughts have changed just a little bit. We're going to go through everything, mechanics, enemies, all sorts of stuff in this video. But I want to welcome Wicked in. He's got his own YouTube channel, does a phenomenal job. I'm going to leave it in the link below if you guys want to check it out. And Wicked, I want you to take at least the beginning here. So for me, this is the second time. I played it when it first came out. Of course, the epic Animal Crossing Cross Doom right back in the day, right before the world, actually during when the world was really falling apart. This is your first time playing it, I believe, right? And in 2016, when we did it last year, that was your first time playing that. So tell me a little bit about the journey. Tell me what you think, how you compare it to Doom 2016, and we'll just kind of use that and go from there.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me back on the channel. I really appreciate it, for one. But for two, in terms of playing this game for the first time, I'm absolutely in love with it for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, people love the combat and everything for this game. For me, it's a little bit of a different love compared to why I liked Doom 2016 so much. And trying to go into this game blind has been one of the hardest things ever, because since we're all monitored all the time, I started playing the game and then my entire YouTube feed was talking about late game tricks and speed runs. And I was actually getting invested into the community for this game, which is not something I could say I've done in quite a long time.
There we go. And I think something that we'll probably get to as this video goes, I had the same thing, right? So I'm replaying it, and sometimes I like to check, like, where I'm at, right? So obviously these games kind of broken down into levels, chapters, whatever. So I'll go search just one time. I'll search one time a video of kind of where I'm at, and then all of a sudden, yeah, I'm seeing just, like, the most legendary plays. Now, I will say, that kind of almost enhanced the experience. I don't know about you, man, but for me, it made me feel worse about myself because there were people playing it on, like, nightmare difficulty, right? And they're using every trick in the book. And I think, it's kind of a pro-con because it makes me feel worse because I'm just not that skilled, but it also shows off, okay, because I don't know about you. I think this game is far harder than Doom 2016, and we'll kind of get into that in a second, but I've seen people just do the most incredible things with all the different, mods to the weapons and just really using everything to their, like, absolute potential. And that's kind of what you have to do anyway. And it's definitely what you have to do, in the higher difficulty. So it's kind of both. It kind of made me feel like, okay, I'm not playing it right, but I almost feel like that, that highlights just how cool it is. And then it's like, okay, maybe the game isn't as hard, or maybe, these people have just found, like, a different way. What did you think specifically about the difficulty? Would you play it on, and did you think that it was harder than 2016?
So I went into this game trying to challenge myself. Okay, I loaded in for the first time and I put it on nightmare mode and instantly had to kind of readjust my thinking and went back to kind of like the middle of the pack. I don't remember the names, but it's basically like the normal difficulty. And I definitely feel like this game is harder, and I know we'll get into it more specifically, but like for me, I think one of the reasons that Doom 2016 was easier than I thought it was going to be is because of how much ammo reserves you're given in that game. And then this game kind of like stomps you in the face in that aspect. Like there's no ammo at times. I felt like I was definitely dying way more in this one, but in a more fun way. Like I felt it was the arenas being bigger in this game too, just felt like it was a lot more fun to me. I was able to run away faster, I would say. But I definitely agree. I think it's way harder than I even expected it to be.
Yeah, there was a couple things, and I want to get your opinion on, like, what was so just vastly different, when you kind of fire it up. So for me, and honestly, it doesn't really even matter that I played this twice and you played it once, because I forgot. So, I remember certain enemy types, and, like that guy or the whatever freaking huge boss that'll spawn the enemies with, like, the flames around him. That one freaking that got me pretty mad. But there were times, I remember this level, I remember that enemy, but I forgot a lot. Like you said, with, like, the reserves of ammo, things like that. Man, I had no idea. I completely, maybe blanked that out of my mind originally. This, for one, that's, I think, much harder, right? They really challenge you to, you got to use everything in your arsenal, right? You got to light these enemies on fire to get your armor. You have to use the sword eventually when you get the sword. The chainsaw is just as important as ever. And you really got to mess around with these different weapons because you are not, you don't have unlimited. You really got to pick, okay, this weapon, I don't know about you, I would do, this weapon is reserved for X enemy, right? Like, I'm going to use this for these enemies, and once those enemies are done, I'm not using that weapon again because I'm going to need it for something else, 5 minutes down the line. But that to me really stood out. The platforming. Now, I remember, especially because going into Doom the Dark Ages, right, they kind of highlight, okay, Doom 2016 was about this. Doom, Eternal was about this. I kind of forgot how much platforming was in it. I think for me personally, it worked fine in the arenas. I did kind of get tired of it when it was just literal platforming sections. I feel like it wasn't bad, but I definitely prefer 2016, like boots on the ground, kind of. And I think that's, Doom the Dark Age is definitely going and kind of tripling down on that. So those were just some of the ways. Jumping in, again, kind of almost for the first time, because I feel like I wiped my memory clean. The different enemy types that they throw in towards the end, they're like freaking, I don't know about you, there's gauntlets, at the end. There's like 4, 5, 6 kind of arenas towards like the last 2 chapters that you honestly feel like spent when you're done. Like, you feel like you just fought, you the person, not even the Doomslayer, you fought a war, and then you got like 20 seconds to get ready, and then you have to do it again, to the next group. So how'd you feel about just that, specifically, I guess, the difficulty and in comparison to 2016?
Yeah, I think in comparison to 2016, I definitely, you talking about those arenas near the end of the game was giving me like Nom flashbacks. Like, I was sitting here while you were talking just in a daze because I was thinking about it. But I think it speaks to why I personally like this game actually more than 2016 is 2016 does a really good job of bringing people like myself who never played Doom into the franchise and getting you recognized with everything. And then this game just kind of throws it all out the window. And it's basically saying, I don't care if you're a new fan, I don't care if you're an old fan, we're just going to make your life basically like a living hell, because that's what you're doing. You're fighting all these monsters constantly. And you're right, it's definitely exhausting. I definitely had to take a lot more breaks playing this game. I'm usually someone who, in a single player game, I could sit there and play the whole thing in one sitting, depending on how long the game is, how much time I have with work, etc. But with this game, I definitely had to take like water breaks, even though, and like get myself eye drops because I was wearing my glasses and had to take those off. It was just a whole thing because I would forget to blink because I'm so focused in this game. And you touched on platforming, which I personally loved in this game. I'm a huge platforming fan, as you know. This is probably the first time we've ever had a different opinion on something.
Probably.
But I grew up with platformers. Those were like the only games I had as a kid, just because I had the DS. And so this game, having such an emphasis on them with all of the new movement systems that it introduced, it just works for me, and I really like platforming. So this game focusing on it definitely kind of took me out of it, but it wasn't easy at all. And I do feel like there are points where this game can actually be a little more forgiving in terms of like health and ammo and armor. But if you're not going and trying to find every little thing in the level, I definitely think it kind of puts you at a disadvantage. Like, you'll find really good gear hidden in some place that you just would never think to look unless you're purposely going out of your way, which, some people aren't going to really love, some people are going to really love. And I'm one of those people, because the dashes, the hooks, even like the Hulk-like wall climbing, I just really enjoyed.
Well, and I think we talked about this specifically with 2016, right? That map and just how they do it. And this one being, pretty similar. And I will say that I think that's actually where the platforming was highlighted like the best for me was, okay, you're going to need these things. I mean, finding collectibles is fun. I actually found more than I thought, I was going to find. But, when it comes to like health, right? Like anytime you saw that green, like a helmet, it's like, okay, I don't care where that is, I got to get it. Because, at one point I had like multiple times, but I remember one, I think I had 5 extra lives and I lost like 3 in one arena. And I was like, thank freaking the Lord that I had as many as I did. But I do think that it's actually where it is at its best, kind of jumping off a cliff and then knowing it's probably behind you, right? So you have to jump down and do like a double dash. It is like functionally very, very solid. I just didn't like the area. It's kind of I think at the end when you have to, it like turn on the rings where it's like almost like Halo like platforms in the sky and you had to dash through things to different areas and turn things on. That one just like kind of annoyed me sometimes. It almost felt like his weight would like bring him down. He wouldn't actually get to the next portal, at least for me. But no, that was a pretty strong part. But yeah, man, I mean, by the end, and let's talk a little bit about, so I mentioned the enemies and stuff. I think the Marauder is that one that'll like summon the wolf and will like his eyes will light up green. What did you think about? So there was like him. There was it Archdemon, the one that'll summon ones and it will have like the fire in front of them. What did you think about all the new ones? Because not only right do they introduce like 3, 4, 5 like really like pristine. These are like elite freaking enemies. But they do the same thing, and we'll talk a little bit about the formula. I mean, the formula is kind of the same, right? They introduce them kind of as like these end gauntlet bosses, and then they just become freaking normal enemies, right? They're just part of the overall. You might have to fight 2 Marauders in one arena, whereas one was hard enough like half an hour ago. So what do you think about the new enemies, and then again, kind of that system of just them, throwing them in the rotation, basically?
Yeah, I think the system is just to make you feel like you're on a constant uphill. It feels like the entire game, like you said, you're fighting this boss. It feels like a boss battle. And then all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, you do some cool platforming, and then there's 3 of them. And you're just sitting there like, I just used all my ammo on the little army outside before coming to you. But I think it speaks to the weapon variety in this game and how it's improved. But I also think it's just cool how they've done it in this game because, again, as someone who didn't play the older Doom games, after I finished this game, I wanted to see how people who did play them felt. And a lot of people were saying that they felt like it was almost like a respected thing because there were enemy types that they brought from older Doom games into this one and just kind of like changed them around to fit. And I think that's really cool. And I think that with that, the new weapons that you get, like that super shotgun that has the grappling hook, I think it just helps having these enemies. Now, for me, the most frustrating part was trying to find all of their weak points because I'm someone who just, like in the first game, my first attempt, I go guns blazing and I'm probably going to die, and trying to figure out where these weak points were on the newer enemy types was not the most fun thing for me. But I think the formula works, and I'm excited to see what they do with the Dark Ages and how they kind of switch things around again. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Well, they just, they've gotten this formula kind of down to a science where, like you said, like, there's the kind of shuffling them into the rotation. There is introducing those weak points, and then you don't have to do it, but it's highly like those big, the ones that do like the acid, those really big like tall fat ones, and you have to shoot kind of both the arms, right? Those are like good places to do. It kind of just gets into a rhythm where it's like, you're gonna have to try to aim and do that, and that's where you kind of bring in, okay, well, now you got the new weapons, now you got the new mods for the weapons, right? So like that sniper type accessory for just the assault rifle, like you're gonna need that, for some of those skull crawly things. Like you're gonna need to, and that's, again, when I watch some of these experts play, they're using everything. They are switching to the plasma one, and they're using mods that I don't think I even used one time, but they're using it to like the best of its ability. And that's I don't know if you have to do it, specifically playing like on medium. That's what I played on too, the same one that you were talking about. It gets very challenging. I died so many times, but you get into a groove, you figure out kind of the movement pattern. You always have to keep moving just like you did in 2016, but now there's the verticality. Right now you're jumping and falling and using these portals to kind of appear at other ends of the map. If you're not doing that, you are going to get so screwed so quickly. So I don't know, I just feel they did such a good job. Of course, there's like the visual part of it too. I don't know about you. I mean, I played this I mean, when it came out, where it was PS4, there's like the PS5 upgrade, so it looks beautiful. I forgot about the whole, like when you shoot the enemies, their skin will basically like fall off. It's got like a disintegration type feature to it. That looked freaking awesome. Where some of the bigger, I don't even know what to like, almost Resident Evil looking, enemies when they're charging at you, I just am opening fire on them, and you're just seeing them basically turn into a skeleton, right? And yet they're still attacking you, by the way. But it's just, I don't know, it's so. Everything kind of comes together. There's the skill required. There's, I think, really good mechanics of them shuffling it in. There's a new kind of visual features of them kind of breaking down as they get closer and closer to death. I wanted to kind of highlight that, see what you thought about it.
Yeah, my first instinct when I was playing the game and I saw that was that I really want this team to make the Halo games, because I feel like Halo would fit in the Doom engine really well. But I think that the overall just look and appeal of this game, the art style, they have everything down so well. And I could see them just placing the Doom game, or the Doom guy, sorry, in random areas, like with this medieval game that's coming up in different time periods, and just having it work so well. I wanted to ask you, because I'm guessing you played it on controller, and what I saw when I was researching for the game after I finished was a lot of people were having to hold their controller differently. It's called like a claw grip that Call of Duty players used to use.
Yeah.
And people were doing that, and it was making the game easier. I played it on mouse and keyboard, so I felt like the mechanics worked really well. I wanted to see how you felt, because I definitely saw a lot of people complaining about using a controller.
Oh, well, you know what? This is coming from a person that's just not very skilled. I don't think I did anything different. I just kind of got into the mindset of constantly hitting. So yeah, no, I've heard and I think I've seen like a skeleton picture on Google Images of like what that kind of configuration of holding the controller looks like. I don't think I did that. I feel like, like I said, I mean, I really don't think I did it right, but again, I think that's kind of like the genius of the game. I pressed dash so freaking much in this game, so circle was constantly being utilized on PlayStation, but I don't think I held it. And yeah, you know what? Honestly, and I want to talk to you about this too. So for me, the most challenging thing, I mentioned those kind of gauntlets at the end. I mean, you got to stock up everything in the book, to get ready for those. That final boss, right? Like I all these names, I don't know. I don't think you know them either. All these names, we don't know the names. But that final like mech type boss, right? You got to shoot the armor off. It's an interesting. It almost reminded me. I think like Persona 5 Tactica did like a very similar thing, but obviously it's more of like a turn-based type thing. So what did you think? Because I got destroyed, and I felt very I don't know. I just felt very punished with that final boss. How did you feel they did from like the design and just like the way that final boss was? You got to take out the armor, then you got to get transport, then you have to take him out in general, while dealing with just in literal unlimited waves of enemies coming at you.
Yeah, it felt like I watched Endgame and all of the Avengers come and they're fighting Thanos' army. That's what it felt like, but just myself. Like I was so disconnected after like my fourth death that I had to stop and like give myself a breather before trying to beat it for like one final time, because I got to a point where I was telling myself I was just gonna stop here, and I finally beat it. But I think this game in general, but specifically with this ending boss fight, it's such a great set piece that feels like you're in a movie, but does a really good job of making sure you're still in a game. And I feel like as games have gotten more expensive to make, they've started to look better and they're just more grand. A lot of games teeter on that line of they want it to feel like a set piece, but they also want to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're playing a game. And this is the weirdest connection in my brain, but when I was playing for like the final time against this boss, it gave me the same feeling as playing against the very first time you have a boss fight in the first Kingdom Hearts game, almost like this whimsical kind of boss fight feeling. And it's the weirdest connection. And I don't know how I even got to that conclusion, but this game does a great job of feeling like a video game in the best way possible. And that boss fight, I think, just kind of highlights it.
Wow, Kingdom Hearts, I don't think I've ever, I didn't think, I mean, the challenge level for sure. No, I mean, that's just a freaking gauntlet. I mean, and you're right. I mean, they do a good job of like, because you have games where there's this like gigantic threat, right? And then it's hard to do kind of both, where like you have to take out this huge boss, he's right there, but then also you kind of have to take a few steps back and like see just like the miniature, like, because you're very small compared to him, and then all these enemies kind of coming at you. And I do feel, with the attacks that he'll like slam the ground, or he'll like do like a straightforward punch and stuff. I think, it was, once I got the groove of it, which took me, like you said, I mean, I feel like I died probably 4, 5, 6 times too before I really started to get it. And again, like the premise of moving, like you just gotta keep going and use, and at least those things will respawn, right? The chainsaw, the sword stuff that's kind of packed around, but you have to use, again, everything in your arsenal that I think they do such a good job with. Okay, I wanted to get just to kind of, well, I know you have a couple talking points. You let me know in just a second if we hit them all, but I just wanted to get your opinion on the new weapons / the weapons in general. I think we did this for Doom 2016. Which ones did you find to be the most helpful? Which ones did you like the most, whether it's visual or kind of just the feel of shooting the gun? And what was kind of your play style, I guess, with all of these weapons?
So with Doom 2016, if you remember, I was very just punch heavy, chainsaw heavy once we got it. In this game, I really had to take a different approach, but just once I unlocked the grapple hook attachment, I can't remember the name.
I think it's meat hook is like the official.
The meat hook for the super shotgun. That was my entire play style, and it was super dangerous because I would meat hook myself and get killed because I was just flying into waves of enemies. But it was so fun. It scratched like that itch in my monkey brain of just being able to fly around at a super fast pace. Helped with the movement a lot. So the super shotgun was definitely my favorite weapon. I also think that sniper attachment mod that you mentioned earlier for the assault rifle, I didn't find myself really enjoying the assault rifle normally, but once I got that mod to it, it definitely felt a lot better. And the sword is just so cool. It's just the same like melee itch for me. I think that the weapon variety just in general in this game, I was playing it and I was getting more excited for the Dark Ages because you get the shield and there's definitely going to be different weapons in that game too. I'm just excited to see where they go because it felt in this game, although it felt really similar, it also felt entirely different.
Yeah, they focus kind of on the quality versus quantity. And I forgot about, how you get them and like what specific, like I was kind of waiting, like I think I remember about the super shotgun and stuff like that, but I was kind of waiting and saying, okay, well, like how many more are they going to give? I mean, they really just break it up into a couple different categories, right? And then they give you a almost more advanced version of each one of those guns. And that's kind of it. But I think the kind of genius in their method is, again, it's quality over quantity. You got the mod attachments, and you do have kind of 2 different versions of each of these guns, right? So when it comes to like the super shotgun, when it comes to smaller enemies, especially later on in the game, you don't want to be wasting those double shots, and you kind of want to maybe go back to just the base shotgun, right? Shoot them once, do the glory kill or whatever they call it, and get the armor, the health, and then kind of move on. So there's always like something going on in your head, and I think to your point way in the beginning, like just kind of needing breaks. You are constantly freaking going. Like not only do you just face gauntlet after gauntlet after gauntlet, but like your play style has to evolve over time, like with each of these, and you're always building it. I feel like it actually takes like a lot of brain power, to kind of stick with this game. But then you're right. I mean, you got the sword, which I think I forgot about the sword, because the sword is just, I mean, it's a better version of the chainsaw, right? Except at the same time, it doesn't give you the armor, but it's able to one-shot anybody. So I really, really love that. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, you got the flamethrower, which I'll tell you in terms of like what you didn't use much. I did not use that flamethrower nearly enough. And when I did, I used it like pathetically. Like I think I should have used it better. The grenades, of course, you could, upgrade and get more there, which actually we haven't really talked about that. The amount of extra stuff that they added in terms of, ability kind of points and upgrades and all that stuff. They did a lot there. But, grenades. So everything's just kind of building on top of each other. Like for me, the plasma, I use that a lot. I agree with you completely. The just the normal like machine gun assault rifle, I think the like the gauntlet or whatever, like the Gatling gun type thing, that was actually very, very powerful. I used that an okay amount, but I did use the sniper attachment because you could use that on like the different body parts, on different enemies. So, there were still some that I kind of, put to the side. They were like the reserve players, but again, you don't honestly have a choice at the end of the day. Like, you really have to use everything in your arsenal and including mods and grenades and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that as the game progresses, you really have to, as you mentioned earlier, you really need to watch what you're using. And I think it just, again, it speaks to their formula, it speaks to the overall game design. They probably don't want people to just use one weapon, so they throw all of these things at you constantly. One of the things too that I really found after beating the game was when you watch speedrunners play this game, like the really good people, they're doing the same thing just at master speeds. Like they just know everything, but they're still not just sticking to one weapon, and everybody plays things differently, like you mentioned. I feel like this game is actually more replayable than Doom 2016, and I'm not sure why, because I've only played both of them once, but I think this game just introduces different upgrades, the different mods. There's so many different ways that people can approach every wave and every arena that I think it just works really well. So the story of this game, I really want to know your thoughts on here, Alex, because for me, I definitely think that it was an improvement to Doom 2016, even though that was my biggest takeaway from that game, was that there was an actual story, because I never thought Doom games had
Yeah.
any story. This game, I feel like it is the weakest portion for me, and that's just because I'm pretty harsh on stories in general. I'm a huge story-driven person, so if a story has some weak points, I like hyper focus on those. But I think this game does a really good job of inserting a lot of new lore to like the Doomverse that we have now. But I feel like there was so many logs, and you had to read everything, and I feel like I was reading more in this game, and at points I just wanted to get back into the action. But I don't know, I wanted to know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, you're right on that, and I think it's kind of mixed for me because I felt, now it's been a year, since we both did 2016 together. For Eternal, I felt like the story that was kind of right in front of your face, I actually felt was better. Like it was just more apparent, and it kind of, I don't know, had like a better, like an easy, very easy actually to follow kind of direction to it. It actually, I don't remember every single thing that happened in 2016, but it felt like more actual cutscenes. Like you would see the Doomslayer actually walk into several areas, and I don't know, like things would just be happening a little bit more than what you got in 2016. And then as we know with the Dark Ages, there's like gonna be full on cutscenes, right? So they're really kind of elevating that. I'll actually default to the same thing in 2016. I mean, I can respect it. I can respect the story. I know that there is a story present. I think both of us probably know that more now than we ever did. Like you said, almost like a an eye-opening thing. It is still the last thing you care about. It's still the last thing that is really present, and I don't fault that at all. When a game is so heavily focused on everything we spent half an hour talking about, the story is probably not going to be the most. It's really just a situation of getting us from point A to point B to take out more enemies, right? Again, I think there is more of a flow to it. You kind of have like a hub world and those unlocks that are kind of built into it, right? Like you get those those engine type things that you plug in, and power batteries or whatever, and you're able to unlock stuff. So they do a good job of even that kind of central hub where you're learning some of the story, or at least you're learning why you're going to some areas, right? And then eventually it gets invaded right towards the very end there. But they also kind of build in, okay, well, here's how we're going to introduce like runes and skill trees and these kind of different stuff that we're kind of like bulking up the game. We're going to include those in that same little region as well. So not the least the thing that's in the entire game, but it's definitely present. I can definitely respect it. And I do think it's better, and it moves in a more positive direction than 2016. And I imagine Doom: The Dark Ages is going to be, even more.
Yeah, one last question I have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the opening scene, if you can remember, like the opening portion of this game, probably one of my favorite opening portions to any game ever. And I
Yeah.
just wanted to see how you felt.
There's some like freaking epic. There's epic moments. There's actually some like ironically funny ones, like the priest. Whenever you get to the priest, I think. Is it the second one? Like you just slice, or no, maybe you shoot the head off. Well, there's one of them where they're like talking to you, right? Kind of like, just putting you in your place. And then you just immediately, I think you shoot their head off. It's just, there's some really like ironically, and maybe on purpose, just ironically funny moments in this game. But no, I mean, they start it really hot. They end it really hot. Every time you kind of get to those big, the priests kind of are boss type things, because sometimes they do the possession type stuff. Oh, you know what? Let me ask you this. So I don't know about you. I didn't want to do the multiplayer. In fact, maybe you and I can do a multiplayer video even closer to Doom: The Dark Ages. But you can see its influence, right? Because you see the new enemy types. And I don't know how much you know about the multiplayer, but there is that one section where you take control of like that jetpack one, and you only do it, I believe, the one time in the game. What did you think about now? Like, what's your experience with that multiplayer? And then what did you think about just that one little gauntlet arena where you actually power up as a demon and you use their ability?
So I think that I'm in the same boat as you, where I didn't really get a chance to experience the multiplayer in this game, but I think that one mission was really smart, or that one portion I should say was really smart, because I actually thought it was so much fun that I wanted to do it again, and I wanted to keep going with kind of like the demon abilities, and you don't. But I think that that's a good way of getting people who are only really playing the single player just have that little itch in the back of their head, like, oh, it would be really cool if I could play this with a friend, or if I could do a very similar thing in a different mode. And you can in the multiplayer, at least I think. I'm not too secure with my knowledge with the Doom multiplayer universe, but I've seen people play it and it looks really fun. I'd be super down to play it.
Yeah.
I think it looks really cool. And that one kind of section in particular, it definitely shocked me because I was not prepared for it at all, and it just sort of happens, and you're like, oh, this is what I'm doing now. I don't have my chainsaw anymore, but I liked it a lot.
I played it back, when the game first came out. Me and a friend of mine, we played it actually more than I thought we would, and I got okay as it, and then that was something that I kind of forgot about, because then when you're fighting some of these kind of like elite demons, and again, I think it's I hope I'm getting like the names right. That arch demon, the one that'll summon other enemies with fire, like you can play as that in the multi. And I remembered that. So like as soon as I saw the enemy, my eyes got wide. Or even the Marauder, right, with the stupid axe and the shotgun. That thing was that guy was very annoying. But I remember, the first time when they throw them at you in this game, I had, like you said, you had PTSD to 2020. I went all the way back to 2020 and said, oh my God, I remember wielding, these enemies as, your own character in the multiplayer. But I honestly completely forgot that there was even a section, and it's odd because it's really fun. It's very short, but it's also like a one and done thing. It kind of feels like not placed right, where it's like, okay, this is clearly like maybe it was like, hey, you can do this all the time in multiplayer, but it was kind of in the first like quarter of the game, and you only do it for like 5 minutes, and they never do it again. So just to me, it was cool. It's not like there's really nothing about this game that's bad, so I wouldn't say it's bad, but it just felt like misplaced a little bit, and but it did give me memories and say, oh yeah, I mean I remember that multiplayer. It's an underrated one. It's kind of the modern day Dead Space, when you can play as both sides. Late 2000s, I guess, early 2010s, when you're able to play as these enemy groups that you've never been able to play before. That's what this multiplayer really, back in 2020, reminded me of. All right, so once again, I want to thank Wicked so much. This was an absolute blast. He didn't let me down here, just like with 2016, so I want to thank him. You guys check his channel out if you have not already. I'll leave it in the description below. Great guy, great creator, and we've really become closer and closer. So Wicked, thank you so much, buddy, for being on and talking Doom Eternal. We got to get ready because Doom: The Dark Ages is right around the corner.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Dark Ages. I don't know if there's a multiplayer in that
I
game.
think
There
they took it
probably
out.
will
Yeah,
be.
they're not having it, so no multiplayer for that one.
That's
Yeah.
sad, but I'm always here to chat. I really appreciate you having me again on the channel. Maybe in the future, after Dark Ages, we could do a live stream or something. That would be cool.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, thank you to everybody too who watches this video and comes and supports me. I know when we did 2016, it helped my channel a lot, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, I love these older kind of game videos. It's my favorite thing. So
Well, yes. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you guys as always for watching. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about Doom Eternal if you've played it. Make sure as always you're subscribed to both channels, bell icon turned on, and we will see you all on the next one.